6 weeks after my divorce, I was the kind of man people stop inviting places. I still went to work. I still answered messages. I still showered, shaved, paid bills, and did all the things that let other people think I was getting through it like an adult. But inside, something had been ripped out of me so suddenly that I kept walking around like my body had not gotten the update yet. My wife had not just left me. She had been lying to my face for months while I was still talking about next summer, kitchen repairs, maybe trying again for a trip we kept postponing. I was living inside one marriage. She was already halfway out of it, and apparently not alone. That was the part one could not digest. Not even the betrayal itself. The humiliation. The idea that I had been standing there like an idiot inside a life that only one of us believed in. By the time my friend Marcus showed up at my apartment on a Thursday night, I had been eating takeout over the sink for 3 days and replaying old conversations like there was a hidden warning in them I had missed. He looked around my place, then at me. "You smell like anger and coffee," he said. "Nice to see you too." He tossed a small envelope onto the table. "Pack a bag." I did not even touch it. "No. It's 2 nights. I'm not going to some cheerful little wellness place to breathe near pine trees. It's 3 nights," he said. "And you are going because I already paid for it." I stared at him. "Why?" "Because you are 1 week away from turning into one of those men who start every sentence with, 'the problem with women.' And I like you too much to watch it happen." That should have annoyed me. It did annoy me. But it also landed because I knew exactly what he meant. The resort was in the mountains, all dark wood, stone paths, hot pools with steam lifting into cold air, and people who looked rested in a way I immediately distrusted. I got there on Saturday afternoon with 1 duffel bag and the mood of a man arriving at court. For the first 2 hours, I hated everything. The calm music in the lobby. The herbal tea station. The couples walking around in matching sweaters like they had never once checked each other's phones in secret. I took my room key, dropped my bag inside, and went straight to the outdoor pool mostly because Marcus had texted, "At least stand near water and pretend to recover." That was where I saw her. She was sitting alone in a chair near the far edge of the deck, wrapped in a light cream cover-up, one leg crossed over the other, reading a paperback with a pair of glasses low on her nose. Mid-40s maybe. Beautiful, but not in the loud, obvious way that made people turn themselves into performers around her. She looked calm. Self-contained. Like she had no interest in being watched and therefore somehow became impossible not to notice. I only looked for a second before turning away, but a few minutes later, when I came back from the bar with a coffee I did not need, she glanced up and said, "That's a strange choice for a pool." Her voice was dry, amused. I looked at the cup. I'm not really committed to the spa lifestyle. That much is clear. I should have smiled politely and kept walking. Instead I heard myself say, "You don't seem very committed to it either." She closed her book around one finger. "I'm committed to sitting in silence where nobody asks me for anything. The mountains are just decoration." That got an actual laugh out of me, the first real one in weeks. She noticed. "Ah," she said softly. "So you do remember how." I sat in the chair beside hers before I could talk myself out of it. Her name was Madison. The conversation should have been small and forgettable. Weather. Travel. Bad coffee. But it was not. Within 10 minutes it had that rare feeling of dropping past the usual nonsense. She did not ask questions like she was collecting material. She asked them like she could handle the answer. "What brought you here?" she said. "A friend with poor boundaries." She smiled at that. Those are sometimes the most useful kind. "And you?" She looked out at the water for a moment before answering. "I wanted to find out whether I still exist when nobody needs me." I turned toward her fully then. She must have seen something change in my face because she added, "That sounded more dramatic than I intended." "No," I said. It sounded exact. That was the first real moment. The one where I stopped feeling like I was passing time with a stranger and started feeling the click of recognition. We saw each other again at breakfast the next morning. Then on the terrace after lunch. Then later on a walking path above the trees, where she stood looking over the valley with both hands in her coat pockets while the wind pushed her hair across her cheek. She told me she had been married a long time. Told me some men did not need to shout to take up all the air in a room. That her husband had a polished way of correcting her until eventually she heard his voice even when he was not there. What to wear. What not to say. Which opinion was too emotional, which laugh was too loud, which version of herself was easier for everyone. I did not notice myself disappearing at first, she said. I looked at her. And now? Now I'm trying to see what's left when nobody is grading me. In return, I told her about my divorce. Not every detail. Not at first. But enough. Enough for her to understand that I had not come there for peace. I had come there because staying home with my own thoughts was starting to feel dangerous. She did not say she was sorry. She did not offer any of the usual lines people use when they want to get through your pain quickly and return to themselves. She just said, "That kind of betrayal rearranges a man." I nodded. "Yes," I said. "It really does." By Sunday night we were having a drink in the quiet lounge near the fireplace, our chairs angled toward each other, the room dim around us. I was telling her about the moment I found out, and she was listening with that stillness that made honesty feel less like exposure and more like relief. At some point my hand ended up on the armrest between us, and a second later hers rested there too, close enough that I could feel the heat of it without touching. Nothing happened. That was the whole point. Nothing happened, and it still felt like the most charged moment I had lived through in months. I went back to my room after midnight with her voice still in my head and the strange, unsettling certainty that something had started before I was ready for it. The next morning I saw her before she saw me. She was at a table near the windows in the breakfast room, turning a coffee cup slowly between both hands, looking outside at the fog lifting off the trees. No makeup that I could notice. Hair loosely pinned back. Simple dark sweater. She looked even better like that, which was annoying, because I had spent half the night telling myself this whole thing was just timing and mountain air and two damaged people talking too honestly in nice lighting. Then she smiled at the waitress, and that theory died right there. I took my tray and walked over. "Is this seat taken?" She looked up, and the smile changed. Softer now. More personal. "I was starting to think you'd gone back to your city and left me with only decent yogurt and married hikers." "I considered it," I said. "But I didn't want you thinking I was weak." "You already told me you were weak." "That is not what I said." "It was very much the spirit of what you said." I sat down laughing, and for a few minutes it was easy again. Coffee, fruit, bad hotel eggs, little comments about the overly cheerful couple by the pastry station. Then she mentioned her daughter. It happened so casually I almost missed it. She was talking about how strange it felt to travel alone for the first time in years, and she said, "My daughter kept expecting me to cancel. She thinks I don't know how to be by myself anymore." I smiled. "And do you?" "Apparently I do." She stirred her coffee. Though she still sent me 3 messages before 9. Half concern, half supervision. Very her. Something in the way she said it hit a loose wire in me. I asked, "Careful, too careful, your daughter close by?" "No, different city." "Thank God." She gave me a look over the cup. "You ask that like a man checking for danger." "Maybe I am." She ignored that. She's dramatic, opinionated, beautiful when she remembers not to be cruel. A pause. "Her father says she got that from me." "He means the dramatic part, but I know he means all of it." Then she said my ex-wife's name. Just like that. Not in some thunderclap way. Not music stopping, not glass dropping from my hand. Just one ordinary sentence over breakfast, and suddenly the room seemed to tilt under me. I knew the name, of course. I had said it 1,000 times in another life. Heard it in court offices. On voicemail. In my own head at 3 in the morning with anger pressing against my ribs. I looked at Madison and saw it all at once. The eyes. The mouth. Not identical, but enough. Enough that I had no excuse for not noticing sooner. For maybe 2 full seconds I could not hear anything. She frowned a little. Are you all right? That was the moment. The clean one. The decent one. The one where I could have told her the truth before the lie had shape. Instead I picked up my glass of water and said, yeah. Just didn't sleep much. Coward. Immediate, obvious coward. The rest of breakfast I was split in half. One part of me answered her, nodded, even joked once or twice. The other part was already packing a bag in my head, already walking out of the resort, already imagining the expression on her face if I told her I had been married to her daughter and had spent the last few days listening to her, wanting her, sitting close enough to touch. But I did not leave. That was the worst part. I did not leave. By noon we were walking a trail above the ridge, the sun finally burning through the clouds, pine needles soft under our shoes. Madison had a light scarf tied at her throat, and every so often the wind would tug it loose and she would catch it with one hand without breaking her sentence. She was telling me about the first year after her separation, how everyone had treated her like a fragile object that should be stored somewhere safe until she became useful again. I got so tired, she said, of people speaking to me like I was a room after a fire. I looked at her. What would have helped? She thought about it. Someone asking what I wanted next instead of what I could survive. That stayed with me. We stopped at a lookout point, and she leaned on the railing beside me. Not close enough to be deliberate. Close enough to matter. Can I ask you something rude? She said. You seem capable of it. A small smile. Do younger women know how lucky they are? I turned to her. That depends. Lucky to have what? To still be seen before they enter a room. To say something obvious and have men call it fascinating. To exist without becoming background. She shrugged one shoulder, but I could feel the weight under it. There's a certain age where people stop looking directly at you. Especially if you've spent years being someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's dependable person. You become function. I should have told her then. I should have stopped everything before it moved 1 inch further. Instead I said the truth that was easier. I see you. She held my gaze longer than was safe. That, she said quietly, is becoming a problem. We had lunch in town after that, at a small restaurant with fogged windows and heavy wooden tables. We shared bread and soup and a bottle of wine we did not need. She told me stories from the early years of her marriage, before she understood what was happening to her. I told her about the apartment I had moved into after the divorce, how every object in it still looked temporary, like I had not fully arrived in my own life. And have you? She asked. Not until here. She did not answer right away. Then she reached across the table and turned my wrist over, just once, her fingers resting against the inside of it for maybe 3 seconds. That tiny touch did more damage than a kiss would have. By evening we were back at the resort, sitting on the terrace wrapped in blankets while the sun went down behind the hills. Nobody around us mattered. I do not mean that romantically. I mean literally. It felt like the world had narrowed into her voice, her hands, the pause before she answered certain questions. She looked at me and said, "This is foolish." Yes. And you're not even pretending otherwise. I'm tired of pretending otherwise. Her face changed then. Some last restraint slipping. She put her hand over mine. Fully this time. Warm. Steady. When I kissed her, she did not look surprised. She looked sad for half a second, almost, like she knew exactly how complicated a real feeling could become. Then she kissed me back, and after that nothing about the day felt reversible. Later that night, in her suite, we barely slept. Mostly we talked in the dark, close enough to hear each other breathe between sentences. About marriage. About loneliness. About the humiliating things people endure when they are afraid to start over. At one point she touched my face and said, "You feel less broken when you stop bracing." I wanted to tell her everything. I did not. And that is why, even at the happiest point of it, some part of me was already afraid. Because lying does not always sound like words. Sometimes it sounds like silence in exactly the place where truth should be. I woke up before her and knew the whole thing was over. Not because the feeling had faded. The opposite. That was the problem. I was lying on my back in a quiet suite in the mountains with a woman who had somehow reached me past all the anger, and for the first time since the divorce I did not feel numb, or bitter, or humiliated. I felt clear. Then I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from my ex. 1 message from her right under them. Mom stopped answering. The resort gave me nothing, but I know she's there. I'm coming up. I sat up so fast I almost made myself dizzy. Madison moved behind me under the blanket. What happened? For 1 second I thought about doing it again. Delaying. Hiding. Buying another 10 minutes of warmth before I destroyed everything. That was still in me, even then. That is the part one hate admitting. I turned around and looked at her. She was propped on one elbow, hair loose, face still soft with sleep, trusting me completely. That made it worse. "My ex-wife is coming here," I said. She blinked once. "All right." I swallowed. "There's more." The room changed before I even finished. I could feel it. Like the air knew before she did. "I know who your daughter is," I said. I didn't realize at first. Not the first day. But yesterday morning, at breakfast, when you said her name. I knew. She stared at me. I kept going because stopping would have been another version of cowardice. I was married to her. Nothing in her face moved for a moment. No shock I could read, no anger yet. Just complete stillness, the kind that makes you understand you have stepped somewhere you cannot step back from. Then she pulled the sheet around herself and got out of bed. "What did you say?" "I was your daughter's husband." "Was?" "Ex-husband." She gave a short, disbelieving laugh with no warmth in it at all. "You knew. For days, you knew." "Yes." "And you stayed." "Yes." She turned away from me, one hand braced on the back of a chair, as if the room had shifted under her feet. "No," she said quietly. "No, I need you to explain this in a way that makes sense, because right now it sounds insane. There isn't a version that makes me look better. That is not an explanation." I stood up. "I found out yesterday morning. I should have told you immediately. I tried to. I kept thinking I would do it in the next hour, after the walk, after lunch, after kissing me," she snapped, turning to face me. "After spending the night in my bed?" Every word landed exactly where it should have. "Yes," I said. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger built out of the last 3 days. "Did you know who I was when we met?" "No. I swear to you, no. But once you knew, you let me keep talking to you. You listened to me. You let me tell you things I haven't told people close to me. You let me stand there and trust you. I know. You know?" Her voice rose then, not loud, but sharp enough to cut. "That's all you have? You know?" I was afraid to lose this. She flinched as if I had said something ugly. "This," she repeated. "You call this fear? You made a decision for me. You decided I should stay in the dark because you liked how it felt. I had no defense, and for once I did not try to invent one." "Yes," I said. "That's true. Tears filled her eyes, but she seemed angrier at them than at me. She pressed the heel of her hand hard against one eye, furious with herself for reacting at all. My whole marriage, she said, voice shaking now, was one long lesson in what it feels like when someone quietly controls the reality around you. Do you understand that? Do you understand why this is not just some awkward coincidence to me? I do now. You should have understood then. That was the line I had earned. Before I could answer, someone pounded on the suite door. Not knocked. Pounded. Madison froze. I closed my eyes for half a second because I already knew. The pounding came again, followed by my ex-wife's voice from the hall. Mom! Madison looked from the door to me, then back again, and the color drained from her face. Oh my God! I moved first, mostly out of instinct, but she stepped in front of me. No, she said. Don't touch anything. Don't fix anything. Then she opened the door. My ex stood there in jeans, boots, expensive sunglasses pushed up into her hair, anger already running ahead of her like heat off pavement. She started speaking before she even fully stepped inside. Why have you been ignoring me? I drove 3 hours because apparently. Then she saw me. Everything stopped. I had seen her angry plenty of times. I had seen her cold, mocking, bored, dismissive. I had never seen this exact expression before. It was not just rage. It was something more naked. Shock, disgust, humiliation, all arriving at once. She looked at her mother. Then at me. Then at the bed behind us. No, she said. Nobody answered. No. Louder now. Tell me I'm wrong. Her mother started. Don't. My ex took a step back like the room itself smelled bad. Don't say my name like we're having a normal conversation. What is this? Her mother's chin lifted, but I could see the damage under it. You do not get to speak to me like that. Like what? She shot back. Like I just walked in and found my ex-husband in your room? There it was. In the open. No dignity left to protect. I tried to speak. This is not what you think. She laughed right in my face. That is the dumbest sentence you could possibly choose. Madison, I said, turning to her mother, I should leave. My ex snapped toward me. Now you want to do the decent thing? Stop, her mother said, but there was no stopping anything now. My ex looked at her with open hurt, which somehow made the whole thing worse than if she had only been cruel. How could you do this to me? Her mother stared back. To you? Yes, to me. What exactly do you think happened here? Her mother asked, voice suddenly cold. That I planned some scheme around your failed marriage? My ex folded her arms tight across herself. I think both of you are out of your minds. Madison, I said quietly, but her mother did not even look at me. No, she said. Let her finish. She came here for a scene, clearly. I came here because my mother vanished and now I find out she's with my ex-husband. Her eyes shone suddenly. Do you have any idea how sick that feels? That word hung there. Her mother's face changed. Not because of the insult itself. Because some part of her believed she had to answer to it. And that was the ugliest moment in the room. Not the shouting. Not the accusations. The way she stood there split in half between being a woman and being a mother, as if one role had to cancel the other for everyone to survive the morning. I saw it happening and realized too late that my silence had handed that choice to other people. She turned to me then, finally, and whatever softness had existed between us was gone. You need to leave, she said. Madison. You need to leave now. I nodded because there was nothing else left to do. My ex moved aside without looking at me. Her mother did not. She just stood there, arms locked around herself, holding her ground while everything inside the room collapsed. I packed in less than 5 minutes. When I came out with my bag, neither of them looked at me. That hurt, but it was honest. More honest than anything I had done since breakfast the day before. I left the resort alone, drove down the mountain with both hands locked on the wheel, and for the first time since the divorce I stopped blaming other people for all of it. Some losses happen to you. This one, I had helped build. Back home, the silence felt different than it had after the divorce. Before the resort, my apartment had felt dead in a familiar way. Bitter. Stale. Like I was rotting slowly inside routines that kept me technically alive. After the resort, it felt worse, because now I knew exactly what had gone missing. I had met something real and then ruined it with my own hands. For 4 days I did nothing useful. I went to work, came home, stood in the kitchen, opened the fridge, closed it again. I checked my phone too often. No message from Madison. Nothing. Then, on the 5th night, Marcus came over with beer and one look at my face told him enough. You did not lose her, he said, sitting down across from me. You handed her a disaster and then drove away from it. That is a very comforting distinction. It should hurt. You need it to. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling. She told me to leave. Yes. Because what else was she supposed to do with her daughter standing there and you looking like the human version of bad timing? I let out a tired laugh. Then he got serious. You know what your problem is? I have several. You wait. That's your whole life. You wait for things to get better, clearer, easier, less awkward. Meanwhile other people decide the shape of your life for you. He pointed at me. Your ex cheated, lied, left, and you still talk about it like weather. Like it just happened over you. Now this woman shows up, actually matters, and what do? The same thing. Freeze. Hide. Leave. I did not answer because I hated how much of it was true. He stood up, grabbed my car keys off the counter, and tossed them at me. So stop waiting. The next morning I found Madison's address the boring way. Public records, old business listings, one coastal town her daughter had mentioned years ago, then a cottage rental tax entry that matched the family name. Nothing clever. Just stubbornness for once. I drove there myself. It took almost 5 hours. Long enough for panic to come and go twice. Long enough for me to rehearse 20 versions of what I would say and hate every one of them by the time I crossed the next town line. When I finally pulled up outside the cottage, the place looked exactly like something she would choose now that I knew her better. Weathered wood. Wide windows facing the water. A porch with 2 chairs and no effort to impress anyone. She opened the door before I knocked a second time. For a second neither of us spoke. She looked tired. Not ruined, not dramatic, just worn down in that quiet way that told me the last week had cost her something real. She had a cardigan over a simple shirt, her hair loosely tied back, no performance anywhere in her face. What are you doing here? She asked. I came to stop being a coward. That almost got a reaction. Almost. She stepped outside and pulled the door nearly closed behind her. You shouldn't have. I know. But I came anyway. The wind off the water moved between us. I kept my hands visible at my sides because I did not want one gesture from me to feel persuasive. I'm not here to defend what I did, I said. I knew who you were, and I stayed silent because I was selfish and afraid. Not afraid of your daughter. Afraid of losing you the second I told the truth. I swallowed. That doesn't make it smaller. It makes it worse. Her eyes filled, but she held my gaze. You did make it worse, she said quietly. I know. You let me trust you. Yes. You let me think I was finally with someone straightforward. Yes. Every answer felt like stepping onto the nail instead of around it. But that was the point. I took a breath. What happened between us was still real. Not because it was intense, not because of where we were, not because both of us were lonely. It was real because I have not stopped feeling it now that everything pleasant about it is gone. And I don't want the version of me that ruins things by staying passive anymore. She looked away toward the sea. When she spoke again, her voice was thinner. She hasn't spoken to me properly since the resort. I knew immediately who she meant. She sends messages when she wants to punish me, Madison said. Little lines about shame. About what decent mothers do. About how people will talk. A bitter smile touched her mouth. Imagine being in your 40s and still getting told who you're allowed to be. I stepped closer, not enough to crowd her. Then don't let fear make the decision again. Not hers. Not mine. Yours. That landed. I could see it. She covered her face for a second, breathed, then dropped her hand. I missed you, she said, almost angrily. Which made me even more furious. I missed you too. She studied me for a long moment. No more secrets. No strategic silence. No deciding for me what I can handle. Done. And slow, she said. Very slow. I'm not walking back into fantasy. Then we do real life. That was when she finally let me touch her. Not dramatically. Just her hand finding mine, cold from the wind, fingers closing with care instead of heat. It felt more serious than anything that had happened at the resort. After that, we rebuilt it the hard way. Phone calls first. Then long weekend drives. Me learning the road to her cottage by memory. Her coming to my city once, then again. Cooking together. Grocery runs. Sitting on her porch with coffee in the morning while the weather rolled in. Sleeping beside each other without the resort glow around us, just ordinary darkness and the sound of the house settling. Hard conversations when the subject of her daughter came up. Harder ones when my guilt did. But this time nothing stayed hidden long enough to rot. Months later, when we went back to the mountains, it was quieter between us in the best way. No rush, no illusion, no borrowed bubble. Just the two of us standing on the same terrace where everything had first started, knowing full well some people still judged it, maybe always would. She slipped her arm through mine and looked out over the trees. Still here, she said. I turned to her. Yeah. Not everyone approved. Her daughter still kept her distance. The story around us was still ugly in places. But we had stopped living by the version told by fear. Fear tells a lot of stories, doesn't it? Have you ever had to stop listening to fear and start living for real? Let's talk in the comments. And for the first time in years, so had I.